a millionaire cowboy paid her to clean his cabin. Then he followed her and found 4 children. Maria Alvarez woke up before the sun, the way she did every morning. The sky outside the window was still dark, with only a thin line of blue showing that daylight was coming. Her small home was quiet except for the soft breathing of her children asleep in the next room. For a few seconds, she allowed herself to rest, sitting at the edge of the bed with her hands pressed together. These quiet seconds were the only ones she truly had to herself. Soon the day would begin, and with it the long list of responsibilities that always waited for her. She stood up slowly, careful not to wake the younger children, and walked to the kitchen. The floor was cold against her feet, and the room felt colder than usual because the heater had been acting up again. She wished she could afford to fix it properly, but for now, she put on a sweater and filled a pot with water to warm it on the stove. She planned to use the warm water to wash her face and wake herself up fully. While the pot heated, Maria glanced at her calendar hanging crookedly on the wall. Every day was filled with scribbled notes, cleaning jobs, school meetings, reminders about bills, and the occasional doctor appointment for one of the children. She sighed softly, not in sadness, but in the tired acceptance of a life that never slowed down. She had 4 children to care for, and she would never let them go without food, warmth, or love, no matter how difficult things became. Today was supposed to be one of her lighter days. She had one morning cleaning job at a small bakery, and afterwards she hoped to come home early, do laundry, and maybe rest for a few minutes while the children worked on their school assignments. But life rarely followed her plans. As soon as she poured warm water into a bowl and began washing her face, her old phone buzzed loudly on the counter. The sound startled her because the phone only rang when a client canceled or when someone needed cleaning help immediately. Maria dried her hands quickly and picked up the phone. She didn't recognize the number. When she answered, a man's voice spoke clearly, but politely. He introduced himself as the manager of a large ranch on the mountain, a place many townspeople had heard of but few had visited. The property belonged to Cole Maddox, the quiet millionaire cowboy who kept mostly to himself. The manager explained that they needed someone trustworthy to clean the cabin at the top of the property. Their usual housekeeper had fallen ill, and they needed the job done today. He added that the pay would be double the normal rate because of the last-minute notice. Maria felt her heart skip. Double pay could help her cover the heating bill, maybe even buy better shoes for her oldest child, whose sneakers had holes at the sides. She hesitated only for a moment. The ranch was far, and she didn't know what kind of people she would be working for. But she had learned long ago not to turn down honest work. She agreed to take the job, thanked the manager, and wrote the address on a small notepad. After hanging up, she allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes, unexpected help arrived exactly when she needed it. She quickly packed her cleaning supplies into an old canvas bag. The bag had carried everything from groceries to textbooks over the years. Now it held the tools she depended on to earn a living. She went to wake her oldest child, 13-year-old Anna, who always helped with the younger ones when Maria had to leave early. Anna blinked sleepily but didn't complain. She understood their situation with a maturity beyond her age. When Maria explained that she had a new job for the day, Anna nodded and assured her that she would help the others with breakfast and schoolwork. Maria brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face and kissed her forehead. She wished she could do more for her children than simply work and worry. But love, steady and patient, was something she could give them freely. By the time Maria stepped outside, the sky had lightened to a pale morning color. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine trees that surrounded the town. She climbed into her old car, its engine always protesting a little before starting, and began the drive toward the mountains. The road curled upward, passing tall fences, grazing cattle, and open fields touched by sunlight. As she drove, she thought about the owner of the ranch. Cole Maddox was the kind of man people whispered about but rarely saw. Some described him as a cowboy who worked harder than his ranch hands. Others said he was a millionaire who didn't care about money. Some people claimed he never left the ranch at all. No one truly knew his story, but everyone agreed he preferred silence over attention. Maria wondered what his cabin looked like. Wealthy people often had houses filled with things, not always useful, sometimes only for show. She had cleaned for many wealthy clients over the years, and some homes felt warm and lived in, while others felt like museums. The ranch appeared after a long stretch of empty road. The entrance gate stood tall, made of heavy wood and iron, with the Maddox brand carved into it. She pulled up slowly, unsure if she should honk or wait. Before she could decide, the gate opened on its own, controlled remotely by someone she couldn't see. She drove through and followed the gravel path up the hill. As she approached the cabin, her breath caught slightly. It was beautiful in a simple way, built of natural wood with wide windows that reflected the sky. It sat on the edge of a slope, overlooking the valley below. There was no fancy fountain or shiny statue, just a peaceful place that seemed to blend into the land around it. Maria parked her car and stepped out. The air was cooler here, and the wind carried the sound of rustling trees. She noticed the cabin door was unlocked, just as the manager had said it would be. She pushed it open gently and stepped inside. The interior surprised her. For a millionaire, the space was not filled with expensive things. It was clean, neat, even a little lonely. A large fireplace stood at one end with a few logs stacked beside it. A pair of boots rested near the door. A coat hung on a hook. Everything had its place, yet the cabin felt like someone only visited it occasionally, not someone who lived here full-time. Maria began her work, starting with the kitchen. She wiped down the counters, washed a sink full of forgotten dishes, and organized the shelves so they looked tidy. As she worked, she noticed small signs that the owner was a man of routine. Coffee mugs lined up neatly, folded towels arranged by size, and tools placed carefully in drawers. There was a sense of order, but also of solitude. While dusting the bookshelf, she paused over a stack of old books about horses, ranching, and life on the land. She brushed her fingers lightly across the worn covers. Books like these were not decorations. They were used and loved. She put them back in place gently. Hours passed quietly. Maria worked as she always did, with care, with focus, and with a sense of pride that came from doing something well. She hummed softly to herself, a tune her mother used to sing when she cleaned their home long ago. It kept her company, especially in quiet houses like this. Around midday, her phone buzzed again. She almost ignored it, thinking it was a reminder or a message from Anna. But when she checked, she saw a text saying the youngest child had developed a low fever. Anna assured her everything was under control, but Maria's heart tightened. Her children were strong and used to managing small problems, but a fever always worried her. She decided she would finish as quickly as possible and rush home. In her hurry, she didn't notice that her backpack had slipped from the counter where she placed it earlier. She also didn't see that one of her youngest child's drawings, tucked loosely inside the bag, had fallen to the cabin floor. She finished wiping the last table, glanced around to make sure the cabin looked perfect, and hurried out the door. She locked it behind her and walked toward her car. Her mind focused completely on her child's fever and getting home fast. What she didn't know was that she had left behind something far more personal than cleaning supplies, and she didn't know that someone had seen her rushing out, someone who had arrived earlier than she expected. someone who had noticed her tired eyes, the careful way she worked, and the quiet sadness in her movements, someone who would soon follow her, not out of anger or suspicion, but because a small lost drawing and a forgotten backpack had told him a story he couldn't ignore. Cole Maddox had come back to the cabin earlier than anyone expected. Usually, he spent most mornings working with his ranch hands or checking the herds scattered across the wide fields. But today, he felt a strange pull to return to the cabin, something he couldn't explain even to himself. The cabin had always been a quiet retreat for him, a place where he could think without the noise of the world. Yet as his truck rolled up the hill, he noticed a small car parked outside. It wasn't a ranch vehicle, and he didn't recognize it. He stepped out quietly, the gravel crunching under his boots. The morning light cast long shadows, and the air carried the fresh scent of pine. Cole paused for a moment, listening. From inside the cabin came soft sounds, footsteps, the faint clink of dishes, and a gentle hum that reminded him of something warm, something from long before his life became busy and complicated. The manager had told him a housekeeper would come by. Still, Cole hadn't expected someone to work this early. He removed his hat, brushed dust from it, and walked toward the window. Through the glass, he saw a woman moving with smooth, practiced motions. She wiped down the counters with care, not rushing through the work like some people did. She didn't know he was watching, yet she worked as if someone important might inspect every detail. Something about that touched him more than he expected. He wasn't the kind of man who interfered in other people's lives. He respected privacy the way he respected land. Never take more than what's yours. So instead of stepping inside immediately, he watched silently for a moment. The woman's movements were steady, but held a kind of exhaustion that he recognized. It was the kind of tiredness that didn't come from lack of sleep alone. It came from carrying too much weight for too long. Cole finally walked away from the window and around to the front door, intending to greet her politely. But before he reached the door, he heard a phone buzz and saw the woman answer it. Her expression changed quickly, calm disappearing into worry. She didn't cry, she didn't panic, but her posture shifted in a way that told Cole she was needed somewhere else. He stepped back quietly so she wouldn't feel startled by his presence. A few minutes later, she rushed out of the cabin. She made sure to lock the door behind her, showing the same respect she had given while cleaning. She hurried toward her car with a worried look on her face, holding her phone tightly. For a moment, Cole thought about calling out to her, but she looked so focused, so determined to get somewhere quickly, that he decided not to stop her. Her car drove off, leaving behind a small swirl of dust in the air. Cole stood there with his hands in his pockets, watching until the car disappeared down the hill. He didn't know her name, but something about her stayed with him. A gentle strength wrapped in quiet sadness. A few minutes later, he stepped inside the cabin. The place looked cleaner than it had in months. Everything seemed touched with care. Even the air felt fresher, as if someone had opened windows and let new life in. That's when he noticed it. A backpack lying between the sofa and the wooden chest. It didn't belong to him, and it certainly didn't belong to the ranch workers. He bent down to pick it up, intending to return it quickly before the housekeeper reached too far down the road. But when he lifted the backpack, something slipped out and fluttered onto the floor. He picked it up gently. It was a drawing, a child's drawing. Bright crayon colors filled the page. The picture showed a small house, a tall tree, 4 smiling children, and a woman standing with them, holding their hands. The drawing was simple and sweet, full of hope. But the words scribbled at the bottom in uneven handwriting made Cole pause. For Mommy. He looked at the backpack again. It wasn't just a forgotten bag. It was a piece of someone's life, something important that didn't belong in a stranger's cabin. He opened the zipper carefully, hoping to find identification so he could return it. Inside were small things, a few snacks, an old notebook filled with reminder notes, and a folded paper with what looked like a schedule for 4 children. School times, homework lists, small drawings, and tiny messages like, "Good luck, Mommy," written again and again in different handwriting. Cole felt a slow ache build in his chest, the kind he rarely allowed himself to feel. Whoever that woman was, she wasn't just a housekeeper trying to earn extra money. She was a mother carrying the weight of an entire family. He thought about the moment she had rushed out, how worry had pinched her features. Something was wrong, and she had gone to fix it the way strong people do, quietly, without asking for help. For several minutes, Cole just stood there with the backpack in his hands. Most people would have sent a worker to return it. Most people might have left it at the office for the owner to pick up. But Cole had never been the kind of man who ignored a problem, especially when it belonged to someone who clearly didn't have many people in her corner. He slipped the drawing back inside the backpack, zipped it carefully, and walked out of the cabin. He climbed into his truck, but instead of driving to town immediately, he sat still, thinking. He wasn't a man who followed strangers. He wasn't curious by nature, and he didn't like getting involved in people's private lives. But something about the forgotten backpack and the child's drawing pulled at him with a quiet force. It reminded him of a time long ago, before the ranch grew large, before the business took over his days, before he learned to keep his heart guarded. He remembered being a boy drawing pictures for his mother, leaving them on the kitchen table so she wouldn't forget he loved her. His mother always kept those drawings in a small wooden box. She said simple things made life beautiful. The backpack in his hands felt like something precious, not just an object. And he couldn't shake the feeling that returning it wasn't just the polite thing to do, but the necessary thing. So he turned the key in the ignition. But as he began to drive, he realized a problem. He didn't know where the woman lived. The ranch manager had mentioned the agency that sent housekeepers, so Cole turned toward town to ask. He normally avoided long conversations with people, but today, he didn't care if it took time. When he reached the small housekeeping office, the receptionist looked startled to see him. People in town knew who he was, and they knew he rarely visited public places unless necessary. Cole explained calmly that one of their workers had accidentally left something behind at his cabin. The receptionist checked the schedule and said, "That must be Maria Alvarez." Maria, so that was her name. The receptionist gave him the address after confirming it was allowed for returning lost items. Cole thanked her, then headed back to his truck. The drive to Maria's neighborhood was long and winding. As he got closer, he noticed the houses changed. The homes on this side of town were older, smaller, many needing repair. Some had toys scattered across lawns. Others had laundry lines stretched between trees. There was warmth and life, but also struggle visible in every corner. Cole found the house number and parked slowly. Maria's home was modest but tidy, with a few potted plants near the steps and a small handmade sign that said, "Welcome home." Before he knocked, he heard soft voices inside, children talking quietly, their tones gentle but concerned. He also heard Maria's voice, calm but tired, speaking to reassure them. He didn't want to intrude, but he also didn't want to leave without returning the backpack. He stepped up to the door and gently knocked. After a few seconds, the door opened. Maria stood there, surprised to see him. Her eyes widened, and for a moment she looked embarrassed, as if she feared something had gone wrong at the cabin. But Cole simply lifted the backpack slightly and said, "You left this behind." Maria's shoulders relaxed just a little, but her face still held the shadow of worry. She took the backpack with both hands. and her voice was soft when she said, "Thank you. I didn't even notice it was missing." Cole nodded, unsure how to say the words forming in his mind. He wasn't trying to pry, but something in this home, the sound of children, the warmth, the hurried energy, made him feel like he had stepped into a different world from the one he usually lived in. Then, before Maria could close the door, a small child peeked out from behind her, a little girl with big eyes, holding a blanket and leaning against her mother's leg. She wasn't afraid, just curious. And then 2 more children appeared behind her, and then a 4th, all watching silently, studying the tall man on their porch. Cole realized something all at once. Maria hadn't rushed out of the cabin because she wanted to leave early. She rushed out because her family needed her, and she was doing everything in her power to keep their world steady. Standing there, surrounded by soft voices and wide eyes, Cole understood why the forgotten drawing had felt so important. He wasn't looking at just a housekeeper. He was looking at a mother doing her best every single day. And for the first time in a long time, Cole felt something shift inside him. Something warm, something steady, something that made him want to stay instead of walk away. Cole stood on the porch for a moment, unsure of whether he should say more or step back and leave. He had returned the backpack, which should have been the end of his visit, yet something about the scene in front of him held him in place. The 4 children, each with their curious eyes and quiet expressions, watched him as though he were someone unusual, someone unexpected. They didn't seem frightened, only surprised, as if visitors rarely came to their home. Maria gently guided the smallest child behind her, not out of fear, but in a protective, motherly way. She didn't want her children to crowd the doorway. She glanced at Cole again, her face calm, but he could tell she was tired, more tired than she had looked in the cabin. There was a softness in her features, but also a strain that came from trying to stay strong for too long. "Thank you for bringing it," she said again, her voice steady though her eyes hinted at worry. "I really appreciate it." Cole nodded, but instead of stepping away, he looked at her with quiet concern. "Everything all right?" he asked gently, hesitant to overstep, but unable to ignore the heaviness in her expression. Maria hesitated. For a moment, he thought she might tell him everything. Why she rushed home, why her voice had been tight during that phone call. But then she seemed to pull back into herself. She offered a small, polite smile, the kind that people give when they're trying to seem fine, even when they aren't. "Yes," she said softly, "everything's fine." But Cole wasn't convinced. He didn't push her, though. He wasn't that kind of man. He respected boundaries, especially with people he barely knew. Still, something in him wanted to understand, wanted to help if he could. Maybe it was because he knew what hidden struggles felt like. Maybe it was the drawing in the backpack that had reminded him of his own childhood. Or maybe it was simply the way Maria carried herself, with strength that was admirable but fragile around the edges. Before he could say anything else, one of the children stepped forward. It was a boy around 8 or 9 years old. He had dark hair that fell over his forehead and eyes that seemed older than his age, as if he had learned responsibility early. He tugged gently at Maria's sleeve. "Mom," he whispered, "the soup is boiling." Maria's eyes widened slightly. "Oh, thank you, sweetie." She turned to Cole. "I should get back to them. They need lunch." Cole nodded again, stepping back a little. "Of course, I didn't mean to keep you." But as he moved away from the door, the youngest child, a little girl no older than 4, peeked around Maria again. This time, she lifted her small hand and waved shyly. Cole felt a gentle warmth spread across his chest. He smiled and waved back, "You have wonderful kids," he said softly. Maria looked at her children with a mix of pride and worry. "They're good kids," she replied. "They help each other." Cole could see that. Even in just a few minutes, he had watched the older ones guiding the younger ones, standing close, showing a closeness that spoke of experience, children who had learned to depend on one another. It made his heart ache a little, because he understood why children would learn that. Their mother was doing everything she could, but she might not have enough support. Maria stepped back inside, and Cole took that as his cue to leave. He walked down the small steps and headed toward his truck. But halfway there, he heard a soft cough from inside the house. It wasn't the cough of a simple cold. It had a tired sound, the kind that comes from a child not feeling well. He paused, listening. Maria's voice followed, gentle and reassuring, calming the child. "It's okay," she said softly. "You'll feel better soon." Cole glanced back at the house. He wanted to walk away, tell himself that returning the backpack was enough, that he had done what he should and now it wasn't his business anymore. But something deep inside him held him still. He had always been a man who handled problems directly, who didn't turn away when something or someone needed help. After a moment, Cole got into his truck, but he didn't start the engine right away. He sat there, hands resting on the steering wheel, thinking carefully. He didn't know Maria well, and he didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable or watched, but he also couldn't ignore the feeling that she and her children were struggling in silence. Finally, he took a slow breath and started the truck. He drove away, but he didn't feel settled. He kept replaying the expressions he had seen: the worried mother, the tired children, the cough from inside the house, and the drawing. The drawing that showed 4 happy children standing with their mother under a bright sun. It had been drawn with so much love and hope. Cole drove back toward the ranch, but before reaching the entrance, he turned his truck onto a different road that led to town. He didn't have a plan. He just knew that something needed to be done, even if it was something small. He stopped at the grocery store first. He walked through the aisles, grabbing things he remembered liking as a child when he was sick: soup, crackers, fruit, herbal tea, things that warmed a home. He also picked up a few things for children: juice boxes, soft blankets, notebooks, and crayons. Items that weren't expensive but could bring comfort. He didn't plan to deliver them himself. He didn't want Maria to feel like he was intruding or that she owed him anything. Instead, he believed he would drop them off anonymously. He wasn't doing this to be noticed. He simply wanted to help in the quiet way someone once helped his family long ago. With the items in the back seat, he drove toward the small clinic in town next, asking if a doctor made house visits. The nurse explained that they were short-staffed today. Still, if the child's fever got worse, Maria could bring them in without an appointment. Cole thanked her, thinking carefully again. Back in his truck, he considered going straight to Maria's home and offering help directly. But he hesitated. Some people were proud, and some people carried private struggles they didn't want others to see. Maria seemed like someone who had learned to hold things together even when they felt like they were falling apart. If he showed up with groceries and offers of assistance, she might feel embarrassed or misunderstood. He respected her too much to make her feel that way. So instead, he returned to the ranch with a thoughtful plan forming in his mind. When he reached the main house, he found his ranch manager going through paperwork. Cole explained calmly that he wanted to hire Maria for regular cleaning work, not just at the cabin, but at the main ranch house too. Not because he needed regular cleaning, but because steady income would help her family without it feeling like charity. "I want her to feel comfortable taking the job," Cole said. "Tell her we liked her work and we want to hire her long-term." The manager nodded, understanding immediately. He had known Cole for years and could tell when something mattered to him. Later that afternoon, Cole loaded the grocery bags into one of the ranch trucks. Instead of driving himself, he asked a trusted ranch hand to deliver the boxes to Maria's doorstep and leave them quietly. No explanations, no notes, no signature. Cole simply wanted her to open the door and feel that the world hadn't forgotten her. While the ranch hand drove off, Cole returned to the cabin on the hill. He walked inside, looking around slowly. The room was peaceful and clean, touched by the hands of someone who took pride in her work. He sat on the sofa and held the edges of the backpack gently, thinking about the woman who had carried it everywhere, the children who depended on her, and how quickly she had rushed away to be with them. He didn't know their full story yet, and he wasn't sure he had the right to ask. But something deep within him didn't want to forget what he had seen. For a long time, he had lived quietly, believing solitude was easier than connection. But Maria's quiet strength and her children's hopeful eyes had stirred something inside him, something that reminded him that people needed people, even when they didn't ask. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, he stepped outside the cabin. The sky glowed in soft shades of orange and gold. The valley below looked peaceful, but the world felt different now, more alive, more connected. Meanwhile, in her small home across town, Maria opened the door to find boxes of groceries sitting on her porch. She froze in place, unsure of where they had come from. Her children gathered around her, eyes wide with excitement and confusion. Maria's heart tightened, unsure whether to feel grateful or cautious. But as she lifted the boxes inside and saw the thoughtful items meant for both her and the children, she felt a warmth in her chest, something she had not felt in a very long time. Someone cared. Someone had noticed her struggles without asking her to explain them. She didn't know who it was, but she whispered a quiet thank you into the room. And across the valley, Cole stood outside his cabin, feeling, for the first time in many years, that he was exactly where he needed to be. Maria spent the rest of the afternoon trying to understand where the boxes had come from. She had opened each one carefully, almost afraid that touching them might make them disappear. Her children helped her unpack, their faces glowing with excitement as they discovered items they rarely had: fresh fruit, soft blankets, colorful notebooks, warm soup mixes, and even a few small surprises like crayons and tiny snack packs. For a home that often stretched every penny, these things felt like treasures. But after the excitement settled, Maria felt her heart grow uneasy. She appreciated the kindness deeply, but she was a woman who lived with caution. Life had taught her to question things that seemed too good to be true. She didn't want anyone to feel she needed pity, and she feared accepting help might make her seem weak. More than anything, she didn't want anyone thinking she couldn't care for her children. She stood by the kitchen table with her hands resting lightly on the edge, staring at the boxes as if they were puzzles she had to solve. Her oldest daughter, Anna, came to stand beside her. "Mom," she said softly, "it's okay to be happy about this." Maria sighed. "I am happy, sweetheart, but I just don't know who sent it." Anna looked down thoughtfully. "Maybe someone from church, or someone you cleaned for before?" Maria didn't answer. She thought about the people she worked for, most of whom never even learned her name. They left payment on counters, gave directions through text messages, and barely saw her beyond the tasks she completed. But earlier today, there had been someone different. The quiet man standing on her porch, holding her forgotten backpack. His eyes had been kind, steady, and observant. Could he have sent these things? She pushed the thought away. She barely knew him. It didn't make sense. Yet, deep down the possibility lingered quietly. As night fell and the children settled down with their new blankets and books, Maria sat by the window looking out at the dark street. A soft breeze moved the thin curtains, and she pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders. She didn't know why her mind kept returning to the cowboy with the calm voice and the thoughtful gaze. Maybe it was because he had returned the backpack so gently, with no hint of judgment. Maybe it was because something about him felt steady in a way she hadn't felt around anyone in years. Still, Maria reminded herself that kindness from strangers was rare, and it didn't mean she could trust them. She had to be careful. Her children depended on her. The next morning, Maria woke early again, but this time she felt a mix of emotions: gratitude, confusion, and a touch of nervousness. She had work to do, and she couldn't allow her thoughts to distract her. After preparing breakfast and making sure Anna had everything under control for the younger ones, Maria left the house with a determined heart. She didn't expect anything unusual to happen that day, but halfway through cleaning a small apartment, her phone buzzed. She glanced down and saw a message from the housekeeping agency, asking her to come in later that afternoon. Her heart tightened slightly. She wondered if the client from yesterday had complained, though she knew she had done her best. After finishing her job, she hurried to the agency office. Inside, the receptionist smiled warmly and handed her a new schedule. "We received wonderful feedback about your cleaning at the Maddox Ranch," she said. "Mr. Maddox has asked if you can take on regular work at both his cabin and the main house." Maria blinked in surprise. She hadn't expected that. "Regular work?" she repeated softly. "Yes," the receptionist confirmed. "Steady hours and higher pay. You can choose the days that work best for you." Maria felt her breath catch. Steady income, higher pay. The things she had prayed for during so many long nights. She swallowed, trying to keep her emotions steady. "Did he say why?" "Only that he was impressed by your work," the receptionist replied, "and that he would like someone reliable. You have a good record." Maria nodded slowly. She wanted to feel happy, and part of her did, but another part twisted with worry. Why would a man like him request someone like her? People with large properties often changed workers without a second thought. They didn't usually notice who cleaned or how carefully the work was done. She walked out of the office with the new schedule in her hand, unsure whether to feel grateful or uneasy. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Cole was speaking with the manager. He made sure everything was arranged in a way that wouldn't make Maria suspicious or uncomfortable. He didn't want her to think he was trying to control anything in her life. He simply wanted to provide an opportunity, a fair one, without attaching any pressure or expectation. The manager nodded. "She's a hard worker," he said. "Quiet, respectful, the kind who doesn't ask for help even when she needs it." Cole looked out toward the fields, where sunlight stretched over the land. "Some people carry more than others," he said softly. "If we can lighten the load even a little, it's the right thing to do." He meant it. He had no intention of intruding into Maria's personal world, but he also couldn't shake the feeling that she had been facing life alone for too long. Later that afternoon, Cole found himself driving toward town again. He told himself he was only going to check on a shipment of supplies the ranch needed. But his heart knew the truth. He was drawn to something he didn't fully understand, a quiet connection he hadn't expected to feel. As he passed through Maria's street, he slowed down. He didn't stop. He didn't even pull into her driveway. He simply looked at the house from a distance, noticing the soft glow of lights inside and the sound of children's laughter drifting faintly through the open window. It brought a gentle smile to his face. A home filled with laughter was special, even when life was difficult. Inside, Maria didn't notice his truck passing. She was busy preparing dinner and listening to her children talk about their day. But every now and then she paused, lost in thought about the new job offer, the groceries, and the unexpected kindness that had shown up at her door. That evening, after the children went to sleep, Maria sat at the kitchen table with a cup of warm tea. She stared at the new schedule, feeling her heart tugged in two directions. The extra work would help her family so much. It could give her breathing room she hadn't had in years. But another thought whispered quietly, why did a man like him care? She remembered the way he had looked at her children, not with pity, but with gentle respect. She remembered how kindly he had returned the backpack, and how he hadn't pushed or questioned her. It made her feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Seen. Still, trust was not something she could offer easily. The next day, Maria went to the ranch for her new cleaning schedule. She felt her stomach twist nervously as she drove through the large gate. She reminded herself that this was work, good, honest work, and she should be proud to have it. When she arrived at the main house, the door opened before she could knock. Cole stood there, tall and calm, wearing his usual simple shirt and jeans. He didn't look intimidating. He looked steady, as if the land itself had shaped him. "Good morning, Maria," he said with a warm smile. "I'm glad you could come." Maria gave a polite nod. "Good morning, sir. Just Cole," he said gently. She didn't smile, but her expression softened slightly. He stepped aside and gestured for her to come in. "I told the manager I wanted you for the work, because you do things with care. It's rare these days." Maria looked down at her hands. "Thank you. I try my best. I can tell," he said. She walked into the house, grateful for his calm presence, but still unsure of his intentions. As she began to unpack her supplies, Cole noticed the slight tension in her shoulders. He didn't want her to feel pressured, so he stayed at a comfortable distance. "I hope the schedule works for you," he said. "If not, we can adjust it." "It's fine," she replied quietly. Cole hesitated, then said gently, "If you need anything, supplies, time adjustments, just let me know. We want your work to fit your life, not the other way around." His words touched something deep inside her, the quiet truth that her life had always had to bend around every job she took. She looked up at him, meeting his eyes for the first time that day. "That's very kind of you," she said, her voice soft. Cole nodded, then stepped back. "I'll be outside if you need me. Take your time." He left the house quietly, giving her space, and Maria watched him go, feeling the strangest shift inside her chest. For years she had built walls to protect herself and her children, but now someone kind stood on the other side of those walls, not asking to come in, not pushing, but simply waiting with patience. It wasn't love. It wasn't anything fast or loud. It was trust beginning to grow, the way a small seed breaks open beneath the soil, slowly, quietly, and in its own time. Weeks passed, and each day seemed to settle into a gentle, steady rhythm that felt almost new for both Maria and Cole. Neither of them spoke much about the moment he brought her backpack, nor did they mention the groceries that had magically appeared on her doorstep. Instead, their connection grew quietly through small interactions and unspoken understanding. It wasn't dramatic or rushed. It was slow and natural, like the way seasons change without forcing their arrival. Maria's work at the ranch became a regular part of her life. As she arrived early, moved through the rooms with her usual care, and always left things better than she had found them. Cole noticed how she hummed softly when she worked, how she arranged items neatly, how she paid attention to even the smallest details. He admired her without saying so out loud. He didn't want to make her uncomfortable by praising her too much, but he appreciated her presence, and over time he found himself looking forward to the days she would be there. What Maria didn't know was how much she had changed the atmosphere of the ranch. Before she came, the main house had felt quiet, not peaceful quiet, but empty quiet. The kind of quiet that grows from living alone for too long. But after she began working there, the room seemed brighter even on cloudy days. There was a softness in the air that came from her gentle touch, her warm expressions, and sometimes from the little hints of her children she unintentionally brought in, tiny drawings in her notebook, the small reminders she stuck to the corner of her phone, the way her face would light up when she received a message from Anna. Sometimes, while she worked, Cole would sit on the porch and listen to the soft sounds inside the house. He didn't want to intrude, so he kept a respectful distance. But he felt comforted by the presence of another person nearby, someone who didn't judge him, didn't expect anything from him, and didn't treat him differently because of his wealth. He liked that she saw him as a person, not a title. One afternoon, as she prepared to leave after finishing her tasks, Cole stepped toward the door just as she was walking out. They almost bumped into each other, and both paused awkwardly. Maria's cheeks warmed slightly, but she offered a polite smile. "I didn't realize you were standing there," she said softly. "I didn't mean to startle you," Cole replied. He rubbed the back of his neck lightly, a bit embarrassed. "I wanted to ask if your kids are doing better. The little one seemed sick that day." Maria's eyes softened. "Yes," she said. "She's doing much better. Thank you for asking." There was a small silence, warm rather than uncomfortable. Then Maria added, "I still don't know who left the groceries that day, but they helped us a lot. I'm grateful." Cole's heart tightened. He hadn't done it for thanks, and he didn't want to take credit because he knew she valued her independence. He shook his head gently. "Sometimes kindness finds the people who need it most," he said simply. Maria looked at him for a moment. Something in her expression suggested she suspected the truth. But she didn't press him. She chose to let the mystery stay a mystery, and in doing so, she protected both her pride and his humility. As the days continued, Maria began to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time: balance. The steady work allowed her to breathe a little easier. She could buy groceries without counting every coin. She could fix small things around the house that she used to ignore. She could afford medicine when one of the children caught a cold. Life still required effort, but it no longer felt like she was holding everything together by a single thread. Her children noticed the difference, too. They saw her come home less exhausted, her smile appearing more often. They saw that she had moments to sit with them, help with homework, or listen to their stories without rushing out the door again. Even the youngest child, who used to cling to her tightly out of worry, began to relax. One Saturday morning, while Maria was preparing breakfast, Anna approached her quietly. "Mom," she said, "will we get to meet Mr. Maddox one day? I mean, properly meet him?" Maria froze for a second, surprised by the question. "Why do you want to meet him?" Anna shrugged, twisting one of her braid ends. "I don't know. And you talk about your work there sometimes, and the little kids are curious. They think he's like a cowboy from the movies." Maria couldn't help but smile. "He's just a man, a very polite one. And maybe a kind one?" Anna added softly, with a knowing look. Maria didn't answer right away. She thought about Cole's steady gaze, his thoughtful words, the groceries he wouldn't admit to sending, the patience he showed her without asking for anything in return. She looked down at the pan on the stove before saying quietly, "Yes, I think he is kind." Anna smiled and went back to the table. Later that week, the children's curiosity was unexpectedly answered. Cole had invited Maria to stop by the ranch office before leaving for the day because he had questions about organizing some areas she would be cleaning regularly. As they talked, the manager suddenly stepped in and mentioned that Cole needed to sign something near the barn. Maria stepped outside with Cole, still listening as he described what he wanted done. When they reached the barn, they heard the sound of laughter, children's laughter. Maria stiffened slightly. Her heart skipped. There, sitting on a haystack with a small group of ranch workers, were her 4 children. They were playing with a gentle ranch dog that wagged its tail excitedly. The moment the children saw her, they jumped up and ran to her. "Mom, we came to surprise you," the youngest one said, hugging her legs tightly. Maria blinked, confused. "How did you get here?" Anna stepped forward nervously. "We walked with Mrs. Day from next door. She was coming this way to visit a friend who works here. We asked if we could come too. We wanted to see where you work." Maria sighed softly, both relieved and embarrassed. She hadn't expected them to show up, and she wasn't sure how Cole would react to this surprise visit. She turned to him immediately. "I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't know they were coming." Cole shook his head lightly. "No need to apologize," he said warmly. "They're welcome here." The children looked up at him with wide eyes. He crouched down slightly so he wouldn't seem so tall to them. "You must be the famous 4 I've heard so much about," he said with a gentle smile. Their faces lit up. Even the shy ones smiled. Maria watched the moment with her heart swelling. She had feared that her personal life might cause trouble at work, but instead she saw something unexpected. A bridge quietly forming between her world and his. The ranch dog nudged Cole's arm, and he chuckled softly. "Looks like even Rusty approves of you," he said to the children. The kids laughed, and for the first time Maria saw something in Cole she hadn't noticed before. He wasn't just a quiet cowboy with a large ranch. He was someone who understood children, someone who knew how to make them feel safe and welcome. The ranch workers continued their tasks, smiling at the sight. Some of them knew Cole well enough to recognize that this moment was meaningful, not just for the children, but for him too. Eventually, Maria said they needed to go home before it got dark. The children gathered their things, waved goodbye to the ranch dog, and smiled shyly at Cole. As they walked toward the road, Maria turned back to thank him again. But before she could speak, Cole gave her a small, gentle nod. It wasn't a nod of goodbye. It was a nod of understanding, of respect, of something growing between them slowly, like morning light. That evening, after the children went to bed, Maria sat alone on the porch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She stared up at the stars, thinking about how much life had changed in just a few weeks. She didn't feel rescued or pitied. She didn't feel judged. Instead, she felt supported, not because she was weak, but because someone finally saw how hard she worked to stay strong. She whispered a quiet thought into the night air. Maybe good people still exist. On the other side of the valley, Cole stood outside his cabin, looking up at the same stars. His mind replayed the children's laughter, the warmth in Maria's eyes when she saw her kids welcomed at the ranch, and the gentle peace that settled inside him every time she was near. He didn't rush the feeling. He didn't push his heart forward. Instead, he let it grow naturally, the way honest things do. He whispered softly, "Maybe this is the beginning of something good." Their lives had changed, not with grand gestures or dramatic moments, but with quiet kindness, mutual respect, and steady understanding. And from that soft beginning, a new chapter waited ahead. one built not on rescue, but on connection, trust, and the simple hope that two lives could find peace walking side by side.